So, as we enter our second 20-minute segment here on the show, we're 1/3 through already. And what have we discussed? Well, kind of give a recap of the week, and then we talked about what's going on in Israel and Gaza. Just nasty stuff. And like I said, go and talk to a soldier who was stationed in Iraq between 2004 and 2007, especially one of those hot spots I named. And they will gladly tell you what it's like to feel helpless as the rockets are coming in. And then when they're done, the only way to make sure they don't happen again tomorrow is to go and do some form of retribution. Oh, right. I've sat there and repeated myself a couple times over there, so let's work on to something new. Over at BuzzPo yesterday, and then I need to check the date on this latest one. I want to say it was yesterday. Nope, yep, it was late yesterday. Eric Reed pumped out a few stories, and Eric's normally good for one story a day over there, and it's usually a pretty dang good one relating to the Second Amendment. But yesterday was just, I'm sure he has the same kind of summary for yesterday as I do, but yesterday seemed to be the culmination of stupid coming out of the anti-gunners, the anti-Second Amendment crowd. So there was a whole bunch of things going on just to make fun of, and not even having to necessarily refute and rebut, but or however, just poke fun at it, because it's completely pointless, makes no sense. Wonderful Shannon Watts, our great crusader for children's protection, who wants to protect children by leaving them completely vulnerable to violent attacks and leave those who should be able to defend them defenseless and devoid of any tools of the trade, so to speak. Evidently is now evolving her stance, saying that lethal force should be allowed for self-defense. Wonder what's going on there, Shannon. Well, you see, I've tried to get Shannon Watts to debate with me on more than one occasion, and of course she runs chicken. Same with other members of her group, which has changed names. They used to be Moms Demand Action, and now they've combined with the Mayors Against Illegal Guns and formed a new group called Every Town for Gun Sense, or Gun Safety. First of all, these people have no idea what gun safety is, don't even know what the parts of a firearm are or how it works. They've had numerous things put up on their site that you just look and say, anybody who knows anything about how a gun works and the mechanics knows that your little graphic here is so full of stupid that you're defeating your own purpose, and it's hilarious, thank you. But she, if you remember back a couple of months ago, I think it is now, she actually had done some not so cool things with Dana Lash and said some things against her. So Dana was going to the NRA convention anyway. I noticed that Shannon Watts was putting up a counter protest outside the National NRA convention, and being the good journalist that Dana Lash is, she went to go and ask Shannon about it, and ask Shannon for comments, and ask her to face her. And instead, she got silenced. Shannon refused to answer, and she sicked her armed private security personnel on Dana Lash. Yeah. So, hypocrite much? Yep, big hypocrite there. Yeah, she doesn't carry a gun, but her bodyguards do. I'm glad she can afford them. I know my family can't afford bodyguards, so, since we can't afford them, can we at least carry for ourselves? Well, Shannon, I guess, is going back and forth and kind of tap dancing here, because she had a Twitter conversation with a guy named Mike Dickinson, and there were some rather dumb comments made back and forth. And Dickinson said, well, somebody had said something to Dickinson that said, "I'm surprised nobody's beat your ass yet." You know, not a good comment. But anyway, Dickinson's response was, "People generally don't want to die. I own a gun, and if I'm touched, I'm shooting." And this guy, Mike Dickinson, is supposedly, very far on the left. Well, Shannon Watts retweeted that. Hold on a second. Member of the left is threatening gun violence, and she's retweeting somebody that she supports who's threatening gun violence if he's touched. Of course, I can see Dickinson's point here. Somebody makes a threat, and I see it as viable, and they look as though they're going to make good on it. I have the right to defend myself. That's just common sense. That's just our natural, God's given right. But yeah, Shannon Watts retweeted that comment by Dickinson, and just led to a whole bunch of big giant question marks of what the heck is going on here, Shannon. You say one thing and then say another, and it looks like you're confused, or the only thing you really want is money in your pocket from MPOs that want to end the Second Amendment for most, but the few elitists that you decide should be allowed to maintain their Second Amendment rights, which of course is completely against the whole point behind them. So, yeah, Shannon. Yeah, don't need to debate you. You do a dang good job defeating yourself in a debate, because you don't know what you're talking about. So, yeah, there was that wonderful thing to look at. Once again, Eric Reed has that over at BuzzPo. And then, of course, there was the good article over at the Daily Kos. And I saw this article, and I was thinking I could really rip into this and write this up. But then I thought Eric Reed could do a better job than I can. And it's kind of his niche over there at BuzzPo. So I kind of sent it over to him and said, hey, here's an ultimate level of stupid for you. Go have fun. This one's all yours, buddy. So he commented on the Daily Kos article, and it's over at BuzzPo, and he published this yesterday, and it's well worth your read. I just want to give the start of this to kind of get you interested in reading it, because it's really, really well written. And make sure you set your coffee down before you read this. This is my warning, because I don't want you burning your nostrils out and ruining your computer as you sputter at everything all over the place. But it starts with, disclaimer. The amount of stupid contained below is likely to cause nausea, vomiting, confusion, irritability, and make your head hurt. That being said, the Daily Kos has reached a new level of insanity. Jim and Jean Anton have published an article pertaining to the recent guns everywhere law in Georgia. By the way, I need to add this in here, folks. Georgia is starting to make their laws closer to what Arizona currently has on the books, and they're not quite there. So everybody's worried about Georgia. It's kind of funny, because everybody's ignoring Arizona's laws, which have been that way for quite a while. Anyway, back to quoting Eric Reed here. They've shared an incident about being terrified of a camera tripod and managed to correlate that into their obvious hopelophobia. The quote is below, or you can view the ignorance firsthand by clicking over to the Daily Kos article, and the link's there. And the quote is, "I was determined not to let the obscenity of guns everywhere ruin my day. I would enjoy hiking with my grandchildren no matter what. So at 5:30 a.m., when my energy was high, and the air was particularly crisp, and the forest full of song, I picked up the children. We were hiking for about half an hour when I noticed a strange man coming toward us, but it wasn't Slender Man. But what was that he was carrying? It was a rifle of some kind. It looked unmistakably like a gun, a rifle, or a shotgun. But this was conservation land in Massachusetts, not Georgia. Even if he had a gun, I had no reason to worry. Or did I? If he had a gun, it probably wasn't loaded. And he was on his way to a target range. Though, a conservation area? When he got close enough, I realized that he wasn't carrying a gun, but a tripod in a carrying case. He was a nature photographer. He took pictures of living things instead of killing them. I thanked my lucky stars that I lived in a place where I could go for a very long walk with 2 small children and not ever see a single person with a gun. Isn't that sweet? You know, I lived in Arizona, and I used to go places where I was very happy to see people with their pistols on their hips when I would go walking around the national parks and the BLM land and the state parks there for one simple reason. Well, 2 reasons. Now make that 3. I can give you 3 good reasons why it was a good idea to carry a .45 caliber or better pistol, preferably openly carried, when you're hiking. Now, openly carrying, I'm going to get into that versus the concealed when you're hiking out in nature. It's simple. It's easier to unholster and need it and get to it when you need it. And the ways that you generally carry when you carry concealed will actually inhibit some of your movements if you're doing some pretty strenuous hiking, like if you have to do any amount of rock climbing or anything in there when you're on your trail, or navigate certain things. It's kind of difficult to jump and crouch when you have a pistol in your midsection, kind of limiting your range of motion there. So that's why open. But why carry in those areas? Well, first of all, there's some dangerous wild animals. Generally, they'll look at you, you look at them, they're more afraid of you than you are of them, and usually they'll run. Usually. That's not all the time. And a bobcat, which people like to confuse with a cougar, there are 2 completely different animals, but a bobcat, which is a lynx, is about the size of a medium-sized dog, and it's all cat, and it can rip your face off. So if it has kids, and it's there, it's probably not going to turn tail and run to flee from you from being afraid. It's going to turn and it's going to guard its children, which means ripping your face off. I don't know how strong you think you are, but I'm not going toe-to-toe with something with a total of 20 razor blades connected to its hands and feet that's flailing them around as well as teeth. It may also have diseases that even if it doesn't kill me right then and there, I'll catch something and die a week later of Lord knows what. And then there's bears, etc., etc., etc. So you have the wild animals to defend yourself and your family from if you need to. Now, I've never had to. I came close once, and my hand was down there getting ready to unholster my weapon, but luckily the critter that was kind of looking at me and stalking at me, decided to turn tail and run after I kind of stared it down. And that was a bobcat that one particular time. Never had to shoot. But I was very glad to have had my firearm on my side if I had had to. Thankfully, I didn't. Second reason is criminals do go there and hide out. Or they'll go there and do their drug deals or whatever bad things they're doing. And they don't care about the laws. They're probably armed. So, if you accidentally run into them because they're doing their illegal stuff in the area where your family should be allowed to freely walk and enjoy nature, you have the right to defend them and defend yourself. And if you're unarmed, then your family is probably going to meet with a very, very bad end. So, there's reason number 2. Reason number 3. This was Arizona, folks, down near the border. There are other criminals who use these areas because they know that they're not going to have to deal with a heavily populated area per se. They can sneak through and sneak around, and they're armed, and they're dangerous. And usually if they're going through there, it's not so much that they're coming up, they're on their way back. So the innocents, if you have the innocent people that they're trafficking or the slaves that they're bringing into the U.S. to sell, are usually not with them at that time. And 9 times out of 10, if they're hustling through that area, somebody else is in pursuit, and they're using this area because it's harder to follow them. The local police can't chase people through the federal lands. They have to request federal assistance. And that changeover takes some time, and that gives them a little bit of time to move. Well, you get in the way of them, they're probably going to leave you they're probably going to shoot you and leave you for dead. So, there's that as well. So there's 2 different types of human threat in there, and then there's the natural threats there. And then, you can add your general, there's perverts and stuff. You're talking about walking around with kids. If your kid happens to stray to the side, God forbid, you're going to have some pervert that's going to try to do something, and, sometimes there's only one way to stop them. Of course, my preferred method would be an elbow to their nose and wrap them and tie them up and then deliver them to the police and have them prosecuted and sent to jail where all kinds of nastiness can happen to them while they're incarcerated. But sometimes that's not the option that's available. Anyway, I would rather walk around these areas where I am free to see law-abiding, responsible citizens carrying guns than I would be free to walk around with 2 small children and not even see a single person with a gun. Wimps. These people are just inviting trouble. Because in those areas where they think that they're free not to see it, that's exactly where the criminals are going to go with them, because there's nothing but soft targets around, because they know that there's nobody there that can shoot back. Yeah. So, going into that other level of stupid that came out regarding the Second Amendment yesterday. And there's one other article in there, and it's a little bit down in the queue. So I'm not going to go and try to dig it up for y'all, but that's something for you to look at. Go and look at Eric Reed's stuff over at BuzzPo. And then I want to segue a little bit away from BuzzPo itself, because I know I tend to go to them for a lot of my commentary, because they have such great content over there. But of note, going on the state level wires here in this little spot of earth, this insignificant, small little state of the union known as Texas. We passed a couple years ago, or back in 2013, so it was actually last summer, the new abortion regulations and restrictions here in the state. Now, these did not outlaw abortion. What they did was